Dr. Elias Grant stepped carefully over the twisted roots that sprouted like giant snakes from the forest floor. The air was thick with a strange, sweet scent, and the sky above shimmered in shades of green and purple. He paused to adjust the straps of his pack and glance at the scanner in his hand. Tara 9 had been a world of surprises, even for a man who had studied alien planets for most of his life. Nothing, however, could have prepared him for the sight that suddenly appeared in the clearing ahead. Towering above the trees was a massive creature, its skin glistening like wet stone. It moved with a slow, rolling grace, almost as if the forest itself was bending around it. Elias could hardly believe his eyes. The creature's body was so large that the tops of the tallest trees barely reached its shoulders. Its movements caused tremors in the ground, and birds and smaller animals scattered in panic. But what truly caught Elias' attention was not the beast itself, but what rode upon it. Sitting atop the enormous creature was a tiny figure, no larger than a human toddler. She had translucent skin that reflected the sunlight like a thin layer of glass, and large, curious eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Her hair floated around her head as if it were weightless. Despite her small size, she sat upright with an air of confidence, holding a thin rod that somehow kept her balanced as the giant creature moved. Elias' breath caught in his throat. He had seen many alien species, but none that were so small, so delicate, yet so commanding. His instincts told him to be cautious, but also to show calmness. Fear, he knew, could provoke unpredictable reactions in creatures this intelligent. He stayed where he was, keeping his scanner lowered but ready. Suddenly, from the side of the beast, a small, fluffy creature hopped down. It was about the size of a rabbit, but its round body was covered in silvery fur, and it had 4 tiny legs that moved quickly as it sniffed the air. Its eyes were bright and intelligent, and it let out a soft, melodic chirp. Elias froze, unsure if it was friendly or dangerous. He had learned the hard way on other planets that appearances could be deceiving. The tiny girl atop the giant beast leaned forward, her eyes fixed on Elias. She tilted her head, her expression a mixture of curiosity and surprise. Then she spoke, her voice small but clear, carrying across the clearing without the aid of any translator device. "My puppy doesn't eat you? Strange." "No, I'm not dangerous," he said softly, hoping his tone would convey friendliness. "I'm a visitor. I mean no harm to you or your puppy." Elias realized that the girl and the creature were not just companions. They had a bond, a deep understanding of each other. Elias took a cautious step forward, speaking again. "I'm Dr. Elias Grant. I study creatures and ecosystems. I've come from far away." He gestured vaguely at the sky, trying not to scare them with sudden movements. The tiny girl watched him for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she motioned for him to come closer. Elias hesitated, then slowly advanced, keeping his hands visible and open. The puppy sniffed him again but did not react aggressively. It was almost as if it could sense his intentions. As he drew near, Elias noticed more details about the giant beast. Its skin was patterned with faint, glowing lines, and when it moved, it made a deep rumbling sound, almost like a song. The girl perched atop it did not seem afraid at all. She leaned down and extended a hand toward Elias, her fingers tiny and delicate. "You understand," she said simply. Her voice carried wonder, and Elias felt a strange warmth at her words. He crouched slightly to be closer to her level without making sudden movements. "I try," he said. "I like to understand. That's what humans do. We try to learn and help." In that moment, he realized that despite the strangeness of this world, despite the enormity of the creatures surrounding him, some truths were universal. Trust, care, and patience could bridge the gap between species, no matter how different they were. The tiny girl, whose name he would soon learn was Lyra, guided the giant beast slowly through the forest. She seemed to communicate with it effortlessly, issuing commands in sounds that Elias could not replicate. The creature responded instantly, bending its massive body to follow her instructions with astonishing precision. Elias followed as best he could, careful not to trip over roots or startling smaller animals. Lyra glanced at him occasionally, as if checking whether he could keep up. Despite her size, she was commanding, and Elias found himself respecting her immediately. He had studied alien intelligence for decades, but nothing had prepared him for such a combination of innocence and authority in a being so small. As they moved deeper into the forest, Elias noticed how the trees shifted and swayed, not just from the beast's movement, but almost as if they were aware of the travelers. Strange plants glowed faintly in the shadows, and small creatures peeked out from behind rocks and leaves. Everything seemed alive but not threatening. The puppy bounced along beside him, chirping softly and occasionally darting forward to examine a rock or plant. Lyra turned her large eyes toward him again. "You, different from other visitors," she said. Her voice carried both curiosity and admiration. "Other humans, afraid, hungry, or dangerous, you not." On many other worlds, humans had been viewed with suspicion or fear. Here, he had been given an extraordinary chance to show what humanity could be at its best. "I think every being has a choice," he said carefully. "We can choose to harm or we can choose to help. I choose to help." Safe, she patted the beast lightly, and it responded with a gentle, rumbling vibration that shook the ground beneath Elia's feet. They continued on, the forest gradually opening to a wide meadow dotted with crystal-clear pools. The sunlight filtered through the trees, casting dancing patterns across the ground. Birds with translucent wings fluttered overhead, and the air shimmered with tiny motes of bioluminescent light. It was breathtaking, and Elias took a moment to marvel at it all. The giant beast lowered its massive head to drink from a pool, causing small waves to ripple across the surface. Lyra leaned down, brushing her tiny hands over the water, then looked at Elias. "You see. Not all things dangerous, some can be friends." The puppy chirped and jumped onto his knee as if testing him once more. Elias laughed softly, letting it sniff his face. The small creature's trust was a remarkable gift, and he knew that he could not take it lightly. "You're a good puppy," he said, stroking its fur gently, "and you have a very smart owner." Strange human knows kindness. She glanced up at the sky, then back at him. "Stay, learn, maybe help." "And I will help." Each step felt like a promise, that despite their differences, they could find common ground, trust, and even friendship. The world of Tara 9 was strange and full of unknown dangers, but it was also a place of wonder, and Elias knew that this was only the beginning of an extraordinary journey. The tiny girl looked at him again, her large eyes filled with a mixture of curiosity and joy. "My puppy likes you," she said softly. "Strange but good." The sun had dipped lower behind the towering trees of Tara 9, casting long shadows that danced across the moss-covered ground. Dr. Elias Grant followed Lyra as she guided the giant beast through a winding trail of glowing fungi and luminescent plants. The air was cool now, tinged with the fragrance of alien flowers and the earthy scent of the forest. Elias had never walked through anything like it before. Every step revealed a new wonder: plants that shimmered like glass, insects with wings that reflected rainbow patterns, and vines that moved gently as if aware of his presence. Lyra moved with surprising speed for one so small, her tiny hands gripping the makeshift reins with ease. Her large eyes were always scanning the surroundings, attentive to the subtle movements of the forest. Elias noticed that she spoke occasionally in a soft, melodic tone to the giant beast. Though he could not understand her words, it was clear the creature responded to her every command. Its massive limbs shifted gracefully, avoiding roots and rocks, as though it anticipated her intentions. "You careful," Lyra said, glancing back at him with a half-smile. "Humans not made for this, yet you keep up." "Strange," she giggled, and her laughter was like the soft chime of distant bells echoing through the forest. Elias smiled, feeling warmth spread through him. There was something extraordinary about this tiny alien sitting atop a creature hundreds of times her size, and yet seeing him, just a human, as someone worth trusting. He realized that trust, curiosity, and care were universal languages. As they continued, the puppy trotted along beside Elias, chirping and hopping over small roots. Occasionally, it would dart ahead, sniffing at a plant or rolling in the soft moss, then turn and glance back as if to ensure he was still following. Elias knelt once to inspect a plant the puppy had discovered. Its leaves glowed faintly, and when he touched them, a soft warmth pulsed from within. The puppy chirped excitedly, nudging him with its small head. "Interesting, very interesting," Elias murmured. He carefully examined the plant, making mental notes. "Everything here has energy, life beyond what we understand on Earth. We try to understand, that's what humans do." "What is it?" Elias asked softly, his heart beginning to race. Lyra's tiny hand pressed against the beast's side. "Predator comes." And yet he remained calm, understanding that panicking would only make things worse. The giant beast let out a low, resonant rumble, vibrating through the ground beneath Elias' feet. The sound was deep, almost musical, but carried a warning. Elias could see the tall trees quivering slightly in response. Then, from the dense undergrowth, a massive shadow emerged. The predator was larger than any creature Elias had ever studied, its body armored with plates that reflected the dim light, and its many eyes tracking the movement of the forest around it. Lyra's small voice was steady. "Do not move too fast. Predator senses fear." "All right, slow and steady." He watched as the predator's many legs moved, careful but deliberate. The creature was intelligent. It knew how to track prey. Elias realized he would need more than strength. He would need cunning and strategy. The puppy barked again, hopping between Elias and the predator. Lyra leaned closer to Elias. "You protect clever like human. Use the light, the plants, everything." Its multiple eyes followed the light curiously, giving them a few precious moments. "Good, human, clever," Lyra whispered. Her trust in him was growing. Elias adjusted his strategy, tossing more glowing plants and guiding the predator toward a tangle of vines. The creature hesitated, then lunged, only to get momentarily entangled. The giant beast moved with calculated strength, nudging the predator away without harming it. It was a display of intelligence and precision from both human and alien alike. The predator finally retreated, confused by the combined tactics. It disappeared into the shadows, leaving only the rustling of the forest as evidence of its presence. Elias let out a long breath, feeling his muscles relax for the first time in what felt like hours. Lyra's tiny hands clapped in delight. "You survive. Human, not only brave, clever too." It was not just survival, it was proof that humans could think, adapt, and work with other species to overcome challenges. "You did well too," he said, patting the puppy gently. "And you, little one, you're a good helper. Maybe can teach, learn from each other." The glowing plants became denser, forming natural arches over the path. Strange, humming insects flitted about, their movements synchronized like a carefully choreographed dance. Lyra pointed to one of the larger plants. Its leaves shimmered with a soft, pulsating light. "This special," she said, "heals tired, weak." She touched the plant, then gestured for Elias to try. He knelt and allowed his hands to brush against the soft leaves. A warmth spread through his palms, almost like a gentle pulse. He felt energy returning to his muscles, his mind clearing from the tension of the predator encounter. "Extraordinary," Elias whispered. He carefully made notes in his pad, recording the plant's effects. "Tara 9 is full of wonders and challenges. Every step teaches something new. When you know the world, you know how to face it." As the first hints of night appeared, Lyra finally slowed the giant beast near a clearing filled with softly glowing pools. The light reflected off the water, creating a serene atmosphere. Elias knelt beside the largest pool, watching the water ripple from the gentle breeze. "You made it," Lyra said softly, patting the beast's head. "Safe today. You human, clever, kind, maybe friend." For Elias, this moment felt like a bridge between two worlds, a first step toward understanding an entirely new species and the wonders of a planet unlike any he had known. The night deepened, stars beginning to glimmer in the greenish sky above. Elias sat quietly, observing the tiny girl, her puppy, and the giant beast. He realized that despite their differences, there was a connection that transcended size, species, and even language. Trust had been earned, curiosity had been shared, and the bond between human and alien had begun to grow. On Tara 9, every step forward promised new lessons, new discoveries, and the chance to show the value of humanity, not in power or dominance, but in empathy, intelligence, and courage. Elias knew that this journey with Lyra and her companions was only the beginning, and he was ready for whatever came next. The next morning, the forest of Tara 9 was alive with sound. Strange birds with translucent wings flitted from tree to tree, their melodic calls echoing through the thick foliage. The glowing fungi cast a soft, green light over the forest floor, and the air was fragrant with alien blooms. Dr. Elias Grant moved carefully, keeping pace with Lyra as she rode atop the giant beast. The puppy bounded alongside him, chirping cheerfully with each step. Lyra's eyes were bright and alert, scanning the forest as she guided the creature with ease. "Human, today, learn more," she said, her small voice carrying clearly over the soft thrum of the beast's steps. "Danger comes soon, must be ready. We will face it together." As they moved through a narrow corridor of giant mushrooms, a sudden movement caught Elias' eye. A massive shadow slid between the trunks of the trees ahead. He froze, raising a hand to signal Lyra. The giant predator emerged from the undergrowth, a creature unlike anything he had ever seen. It was larger than the previous one, with jagged armor along its back and multiple limbs ending in sharp claws. Its many eyes glinted with intelligence, and it moved with a terrifying grace that made the ground tremble slightly beneath its weight. Lyra leaned forward, her hands gripping the reins tightly. "It comes for us," she whispered. The puppy let out a soft, warning chirp, its small body trembling with excitement and fear. Elias took a deep breath, studying the predator. He could see its pattern of movement, the way it analyzed the terrain, and the careful way it stalked its prey. Unlike many predators he had encountered on other planets, this one did not act purely on instinct. It was calculating, intelligent, and dangerous. "We need a plan," Elias said quietly, crouching slightly to avoid being seen as a threat. "We can't outrun it. We need to use the environment." Elias noticed vines hanging from the trees above and the soft glow of bioluminescent plants lining the forest floor. He quickly formulated a plan. "Lyra," he whispered, "we can use the light from the plants to confuse it. I'll toss some, you guide the beast. The predator will follow the movement, and we can lead it into the vines." "Good, human, clever." She tapped the beast gently, signaling it to move in a slow arc, while Elias bent down to gather the glowing plants from the ground. The predator had noticed them by now, its many eyes locking onto their movement. Its claws dug into the soft soil as it crouched, preparing to pounce. Elias felt his heart beat faster, but he kept his hands steady. He threw the glowing plants in a series of arcs, creating a trail of floating light that danced across the forest floor. The predator hesitated, then focused on the moving lights, intrigued by the sudden display. It moved cautiously, stepping into the shadows between the trees, following the glow. The giant beast adjusted its path, keeping Elias and Lyra between itself and the predator. "You very brave," Lyra whispered. "Human not afraid." Its momentum carried it into the vines, tangling its claws and slowing it down. The creature hissed and struggled, but the vines held firm, buying them precious seconds. The giant beast moved with careful precision, nudging the predator gently with its massive head, forcing it further into the entangled vines. The predator snarled, its many eyes scanning for escape, but Elias and Lyra were ready. They had coordinated every movement, combining human intelligence with alien instincts. "You work well together," Lyra said, her voice filled with admiration. "Strange, but good." The puppy chirped happily, hopping onto his shoulder once more. "You did well," he said gently. "We were smart and we stayed calm. That's how we survived." He had survived a dangerous encounter, yes, but he had also gained something far more valuable: trust and respect from beings entirely different from himself. He realized that humanity's strength lay not just in physical ability, but in intelligence, empathy, and the willingness to work together. They continued through the forest, the tension easing slightly as the predator struggled with the vines behind them. The path led them to a high ridge overlooking a wide valley filled with luminescent plants and gently flowing streams. The view was breathtaking, and Elias allowed himself a moment to take it in. "You see," Lyra said, pointing to the valley below. "All life connected. Humans can understand. Humans strange but good." Elias knelt beside a glowing plant and touched its leaves carefully. A warmth pulsed through his hands, and he felt his muscles relax. "Amazing," he whispered. "Every step here teaches something new. That is how we thrive." "I hope to be a good friend," he said. "I want to learn and I want to help." He realized that despite the dangers, despite the unknowns of this alien world, he had found allies, beings who trusted him and whom he could trust in return. For the first time on Tara 9, he felt that humans, small and fragile as they might seem, could make a difference. Through intelligence, empathy, and courage, they could survive and even thrive in worlds far from Earth. Lyra looked at him, her small hand resting gently on the giant beast. "Tomorrow, more learning, more adventure. You ready?" Elias sat quietly, listening to the forest and watching the tiny girl and her companions. He realized that this was only the beginning of a remarkable journey, one that would test him, teach him, and show the extraordinary potential of humans when they faced the unknown with courage, intelligence, and heart. And as the gentle breathing of the giant beast mingled with the soft chirping of the puppy and the melodic hum of the forest, Elias knew that he was exactly where he was meant to be. On Tara 9, among beings of incredible power and beauty, humanity's best qualities, patience, cleverness, and empathy, were shining brighter than he could have imagined. The forest of Tara 9 began to thin as Dr. Elias Grant followed Lyra and the giant beast toward a distant clearing. Sunlight filtered through the alien canopy, casting streaks of green and gold across the soft moss underfoot. The air smelled faintly of honey, and the sharp, clean scent of the streams that ran through the valley. Elias had been walking with Lyra for days now, learning from her small gestures, the way she communicated with the giant beast, and the way the puppy interacted with all of them. He felt as if he was slowly becoming a part of this world, even though it was so different from anything he had known. Lyra's eyes sparkled as she pointed toward a cluster of enormous trees ahead. Their trunks were wide enough to contain small rooms, and their bark glowed faintly with a natural bioluminescent pattern. "Home, village," she said simply. "You see, humans maybe learn." He had been hoping to meet the beings who had raised Lyra and the puppy, to understand more of their culture and the way they lived in harmony with the enormous creatures of their world. "I hope they welcome me," he said softly. "I mean no harm. Some curious, some afraid, but you clever maybe can help." Some of them observed from high branches, while others worked on delicate-looking structures made of vines and glowing leaves. The giant beast slowed to a halt at the edge of the village. Lyra jumped lightly to the ground and ran ahead, the puppy following her. Elias approached cautiously, kneeling slightly to appear less threatening. The villagers stopped what they were doing and turned their attention toward him. Their eyes, large and luminous like Lyra's, studied him with curiosity and caution. One of the elder beings stepped forward, taller than the others but still small compared to the trees around them. He raised a hand slowly, a gesture Elias recognized as a sign of peace. "Human stranger," the elder said in the same melodic language that Lyra had used. Elias nodded and raised his hand in return. "I am Dr. Elias Grant," he said gently. "I come from far away. I mean no harm. I only wish to learn and help. Because I have learned to respect life. I study, I observe, and I think before I act. I want to help, not hurt." "Very well, show you trust can help." The entire village pulsed with life and light, a perfect balance between nature and intelligent design. Lyra led Elias to one of the central platforms, where a large glowing pool reflected the surrounding trees. The puppy darted forward, chirping happily as it splashed gently in the water. Elias knelt beside the pool, carefully touching the water with his hand. A gentle warmth pulsed through his skin, relaxing his muscles and easing the tension from the predator encounters of the previous days. The elder watched him closely. "Human, understand, respect, learn quickly." He gestured to the surrounding villagers. "Teach how survive, work together, protect world." See, humans clever can learn help. It required patience and observation. Each piece moved in response to touch, but only in the correct sequence. He noticed subtle signs in the way the vines bent and the way the glowing stones shimmered. Slowly, methodically, he worked through the puzzle, adjusting his approach with each small observation. The villagers watched in silence, their large eyes fixed on him. The puppy chirped encouragingly, hopping between Elias and Lyra. Finally, the last piece clicked into place, and a soft light spread through the puzzle. The elder nodded, a smile spreading across his face. "Human, clever, can understand, respect." It was not just a puzzle. It was a test of trust, intelligence, and patience. He realized that this was how Lyra and her people lived, constantly aware of their environment, in harmony with the creatures around them, and careful to maintain balance in all things. Over the next several hours, Elias continued to participate in the villagers' challenges. He learned how they communicated with the giant beasts, how they cared for the smaller creatures, and how they maintained the delicate balance of their ecosystem. Each lesson required thought, observation, and empathy. The villagers were cautious, but gradually warmed to him as they saw his respect for their world and his careful interactions with the creatures. Lyra stayed close to him the entire time, guiding his hands, offering advice, and occasionally teasing him when he made small mistakes. Her puppy bounced around energetically, occasionally rolling in the moss or nudging Elias with its tiny head. "You not afraid, even when big danger comes," Lyra said as they rested near a glowing pool. "You brave, clever, can help. Strange but good." As evening fell, the village glowed softly in the light of the bioluminescent plants. Elias sat beside Lyra on a platform overlooking the valley. The puppy curled up at their feet, chirping softly, while the giant beast rested nearby, its immense body blending with the shadows. "You learn much," Lyra said softly. "Tomorrow more adventure, maybe danger, maybe more learning. You ready?" Elias watched the tiny girl, the puppy, and the giant beast, feeling a sense of belonging he had never known before. He realized that despite the dangers, despite the strangeness of this world, humans could make a difference. Through intelligence, empathy, and courage, they could survive and even thrive in worlds far from Earth. The villagers began to settle into their homes for the night, the glowing lights of the village reflecting softly on the trees. Elias sat quietly beside Lyra, feeling the gentle, pulsing energy of the pool beneath his hands. He thought of the predator they had outsmarted, the lessons he had learned from the villagers, and the bond that had formed between him, the tiny alien girl, her puppy, and the giant beast. It was clear to Elias that this was only the beginning of a remarkable journey. Tara 9 was a world full of beauty, danger, and life that humans could learn from and protect. He knew that he had the chance to show the best of humanity, not through dominance or strength, but through patience, cleverness, empathy, and the courage to face the unknown. Lyra leaned her small head against his shoulder. Tomorrow, more see, learn, help. Humans may be friends of all. He had come to this alien world as an outsider, but he was no longer merely a visitor. He was part of a team, a bond of trust and friendship that spanned species and worlds. He looked out at the glowing village and the creatures moving gracefully through it, realizing that the humans' place in the galaxy was not just as conquerors or explorers, but as allies, thinkers, and caretakers. As the night deepened, Elias closed his eyes for a moment, listening to the soft hum of the forest, the gentle breathing of the giant beast, and the quiet chirping of the puppy. He knew challenges lay ahead, but he also knew that humanity's best qualities, curiosity, courage, intelligence, and heart, would guide them. Tara 9 was a world of wonder and danger, but it was also a world where humans could shine, not through might alone, but through their unique ability to understand, connect, and protect. And in that glowing alien village, surrounded by creatures both massive and tiny, Elias felt the beginning of something extraordinary, a chance for humanity to show its best, to learn, to teach, and to build bonds that could stretch across the stars. The morning sun rose over Tara 9, painting the forest with streaks of green and gold. Doctor. Elias Grant stood beside Lyra and the giant beast, watching the valley below. The villagers were busy preparing for the day, but the atmosphere was tense. Rumors of a planet-wide threat had reached the village, a mysterious force that was draining the life from the land, causing the glowing plants to dim and smaller creatures to grow weak. This was a challenge unlike any Elias had faced before, and he knew it would require everything he had learned since arriving. Lyra stood tall atop the giant beast, her eyes scanning the horizon. Danger, bigger, all land, sick. We humans help. If we combine what your people know and what I understand, we can save this world. All life connected. This force harms everything. We need help, new ideas human may guide. He realized immediately that the threat was not merely a local problem. It was affecting the entire ecosystem. We'll need a plan, he said. We can't fight this with strength alone. We must understand the force, find its source, and restore balance. We'll start by exploring the affected areas, observing what's happening, and then we'll use both your knowledge and mind to find a solution. As they traveled, they observed the plants' dim glow and the slowing of small creatures. Some trees seemed to be leaning as if struggling to hold themselves upright. Elias noted everything carefully, taking mental notes and occasionally marking points for further study. It's spreading, Lyra said quietly. Faster than before, must act quickly. The areas most affected are near the low valleys and pools. If we can restore energy there first, it may spread naturally. He pulled a small device from his pack, one he had developed to measure energy flows in ecosystems. The readings confirmed his suspicion. The life force of the land was being drained toward an unknown source in the distance. Lyra watched him with wide eyes. Human, knows, clever, find, source. Whatever is causing this is powerful. They knew it intimately and could move through it without causing harm. Finally, they reached the base of a cliff where a strange energy pulsed in a dark, swirling pattern. The plants nearby were nearly dead, and even the air seemed heavy with exhaustion. Elias knelt to examine the energy field. This is it, he said. Whatever is draining the land, it's coming from here. We'll use the glowing plants and the natural energy of the pools. By channeling the life force back into the land, we can restore balance. The puppy darted between them, carrying small, luminous flowers in its mouth, adding to the network of life energy they were creating. The giant beast lowered its massive head, allowing Elias to place glowing plants along its side. Together, they formed a circuit, a flow of energy that began to hum softly as the natural life force responded. Elias felt a warmth spreading through the ground and into the plants, a sign that their plan was working. "Keep focus. Humans, clever, must balance," Lyra said, her voice firm. "All life together strong." Trees straightened slightly, streams ran more freely, and small creatures began to move with renewed vigor. The villagers watched in awe as the land slowly came back to life. But the dark energy was not finished. It pulsed violently, resisting their efforts. Elias realized that they needed a final push. He climbed onto a nearby rock, extending his hands toward the swirling energy. "We can do this," he shouted, his voice carrying across the valley. "We will restore balance together." Elias closed his eyes and focused, visualizing the energy flowing smoothly back into the land. The swirling darkness pulsed one last time, then began to break apart. The energy flowed outward, guided by the network they had created. Trees lifted, streams ran clear, and glowing plants shone with renewed brilliance. The forest hummed with life once more. Lyra's eyes shone with joy. "Human, clever, brave, helped, saved world. We did it, we saved Tara 9. They offered gifts of luminescent flowers and woven vines, symbols of gratitude and friendship. Elias accepted them with a bow, feeling a sense of pride and belonging unlike any he had known. As evening fell, the forest shimmered with life and light. The giant beast lowered itself to the ground, resting its massive body while Lyra climbed onto its back. The puppy curled up at Elias' feet, chirping softly. He looked around at the vibrant forest, the sparkling streams, and the glowing plants, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. Lyra looked up at him with a bright smile. "Tomorrow, more see, learn, explore, humans, friends forever. Together, we can face anything." The villagers settled into their glowing homes, the light reflecting softly on the leaves and water. Elias sat quietly, listening to the gentle hum of the forest, the breathing of the giant beast, and the soft chirping of the puppy. He understood that this was not the end of his journey, but a new beginning, one where humans and alien beings could learn from each other, face dangers together, and protect the beauty of worlds like Tara 9. He had come as an outsider, but he now felt at home. He had shown the best of humanity: courage in danger, cleverness in problem-solving, and empathy in understanding other beings. The land was safe, the villagers trusted him, and bonds had been forged that would last far beyond a single adventure. As the night deepened, Elias closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the gentle energy of Tara 9 flow around him. Lyra's tiny hand rested on his arm, the puppy nestled against his leg, and the giant beast's soft rumble vibrated through the ground. He knew that whatever challenges came next, humans could rise to meet them, not with force alone, but with heart, mind, and courage. And on this strange, glowing world far from Earth, humanity had proven itself. Not by dominating, not by conquering, but by understanding, caring, and working together. In the eyes of the tiny alien girl, the playful puppy, and the wise villagers, humans were not just strange, they were capable of greatness. Lyra leaned close to Elias, whispering, "Strange, humans don't just survive, they save. Good, clever, brave, friends forever." "Friends forever,"